Tales of sea monsters are as old as the sea itself, from the stories told of mermaids and giant squids to the more modern reports of giant sharks and monstrous reptile-like creatures cruising the oceans. There has been a wide gambit of different species said to lurk in the depths. The sea would be a good place to hunt for cryptid beasts, as the old adage goes. We know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the darkest recesses of the world's seas. From time to time, a mysterious blob may wash up on shore, but the spotting of living creatures is rare, and even rarer are reports of direct interactions. This bringing us to a story I recently stumbled across when a group of boys ran into an animal that could only be described as something from a nightmare. Let's take a look. Welcome to IF, videos on history, mystery, and the strange. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a video again. I will begin by looking at the story of these boys and attempt to find a possible explanation. The location of this incident is just off the coast of Florida. A wreck of the USS Massachusetts is on the seafloor at Pensacola and is a spot that was, and still is, popular with scuba divers. A group of 5 young men with little in the way of experience thought that it would be a good idea to dive the wreck. On March 24th, 1962, these young men climbed into a rubber dinghy and made their way out to the site of the sunken ship. They were looking forward to a day of fun and excitement, but by the end of the day, only one of them would be left alive. These adventurous lads were named Edward McCleary, Warren Sally, Eric Ruel, Larry Bill, and Brad Rice, were already tempting fate as they had ignored an earlier storm warning advising those in small vessels to stay ashore. But, full of bravado, the young men set out, and soon the little boat was struggling in large storm-driven waves. The rough sea added time to the trip, and by the time the boys had arrived at the wreck, the sun had begun to set and fog and rain closed in what could only be described as a stupid decision. It was in the choppy, stormy waters of Pensacola that they thought it would be a great idea to abandon the dinghy and swim the final few meters to the location of the USS Massachusetts. Not only would they have an already angry ocean against them, something else from the depths would rise up to terrify the group. Edward McCleary told tale of what happened. First, the boys were surprised when they heard a splashing of something large swimming in the sea around them. It was then a loud hissing sound, and an overpowering smell of rotten fish flesh crept over the sea's surface. Then McCleary spotted something that I think no one would expect. Breaking the surface of the water was an animal that had a long, thick neck, a neck the boy likened to a telegraph pole, estimated to be 10 feet long. This creature then began its attack. First, it grabbed Eric Ruel, dragging him to a watery death. Then, Brad Rice caught the beast's eye, and he too was taken to the depths. It was at this point McCleary was unsure if this was the work of a single animal or a pair of strange sea monsters. Soon after, Warren Sally began screaming, and like the others, he vanished beneath the frothing surface of the stormy sea. Edward McCleary began to swimming like his life depended on it, which, it would seem, it most definitely did. Arriving at shore and not knowing what happened to Larry Bill, he made his way to find help. The body of Brad Rice later washed up on the beach, but the 3 other boys have never been accounted for. McCleary and others believe that the young men may have accidentally run into a still living but said to be extinct plesiosaur. The plesiosaur being the most common animal referred to by many when talking real-world animals that could offer an explanation to sea monsters and in some cases even lake monsters. Nessie probably being the most well-known surviving plesiosaur on the planet. A good place to start would be verifying the story, and we do have some facts which have been confirmed about the attack. The Massachusetts still sits in only 26 feet of water in the Fort Pickens state aquatic preserve. Parts of the ship still protrude from the sea and provide an island which attracts a lot of marine life. McCleary is also still living in Florida, though he does not speak of the incidents since articles on the strange claimed sea monster attack came out. Documents show that he did report the deaths at that time, and in the past when he had spoken of that terrifying day, he said that the authorities and reporters had told him to leave out the sea monster. There is also the recovery of the body, which in coroner's reports was said to be a victim of drowning. So if this was a plesiosaur, how could it still be living? Today, those that study cryptids say that the majority of sea serpent sightings could be explained by a still living aquatic dinosaur. Plesiosaurs are thought to have gone extinct some 65 million years ago. Their description matches what is often seen. They have, or had, long flexible necks, rounded bodies, with paddle-shaped limbs, often compared to flippers. There have been a number of reports of remains of these animals found by fishermen and washed up on shore. The most famous case, still debated today, is that of the Zuiyo-maru. The Zuiyo-maru was a Japanese fishing vessel that, on April 25, 1977, hauled aboard the rotting remains of an animal that was said to be the carcass of a dead plesiosaur. Those who saw the remains firsthand gave the idea that it was possibly a dead whale, a large sea turtle, minus its shell, but could not be 100% sure. Others who have seen the photographs taken of the carcass say it was the body of the long thought extinct marine sea creature. Sadly, it could not be analysed as the smell emitted by the decomposing body was so bad the crew of the ship had to throw it back into the ocean and it was lost to the depths. Other similar remains have been found. Recently, it was claimed that a juvenile of the species washed up on a beach in Georgia. A couple walking on the beach stumbled upon the mystery remains, which had a long neck and fins fitting with a plesiosaur. The creature was far smaller, only measuring in at 1.5 meters. Footage taken at the time was shared with local news stations, and the couple even reached out to the US Fish and Wildlife Service to get some insight into what they had found. Answers have still not been given, and most likely never will. The remains had already been eaten by birds and other sea life, and the little that was left had badly decomposed. Another famous case of alleged plesiosaur remains is the Moores Beach plesiosaur. Santa Cruz, California, 1925. An unidentified creature washed up on the beach. Photographs were taken at the time, and many claimed that this was hard proof that these animals were still alive. However, looking at the pictures, it is pretty clear that this animal was obviously not a plesiosaur. The picture shows something which does closely resemble a Bard's beaked whale. Maybe it's an unknown type of whale or dolphin rather than a marine reptile. Science says that it is impossible for plesiosaurs to be living today. If they did, they would most definitely be seen. The animals would not be spotted by sailors or ocean travelers, but by people on land. The marine dinosaurs were a reptile adapted to life in the oceans, but like sea turtles, they had to come ashore to lay their eggs. And this is the flaw in the theory that science points to. If we take the sea turtle as the closest living relative, we know that when they return to the same beaches they hatched from and lay their eggs, they are often seen. It is likely that plesiosaurs would do the same, and as we don't have reports of these giants hauling themselves onto beaches, there is no way that there remains a breeding population. This being said, I still think that the animal could be out there. Maybe they nest on isolated islands. Just because they haven't been seen doesn't mean they aren't out there. Just remember, the ocean hid the coelacanth for millions of years. As for the story I started with, we must also try to remain grounded and look for more rational answers. Could what attacked the boys have been sharks? Florida was deemed the shark bite capital of the world in 2019, and in an already stormy sea, the boys, thrashing and splashing their way to the wreck, would make for an enticing target for a shark? What do you think attacked the boys? Are plesiosaurs or other marine dinosaurs still alive today? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, if you like what I do here on the channel, hit that red button, like and share. You can catch the latest by searching We Are If. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.